Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Legends lore video. Today we'll be covering the excellent Star Wars Legends book Plagueis. Now, some of you may know that I have a Star Wars Legends podcast with fellow YouTuber Corey from Corey Loses. It's sort of a book club format with each episode covering a new book. Well, tonight we will be covering Plagueis. First, we'll be live streaming it on Corey's channel, then the VOD will be available on mine, and the audio versions will be available on Spotify, iTunes, and more. Links to all of that down in the description. I hope to see some of you there tonight. So, there are two things that the book Plagueis does really well. The first is the integration of various Star Wars EU works, which is what we'll be discussing today, and that's everything from other comics, to video games, to role-playing game supplements, and of course other novels. And what I mean by that is that existing plot lines are very nicely incorporated into the book. That's what we'll be talking about today. The other discussion is about how the Force works, how it reacts to balance in the galaxy, Sith philosophy, and more. That will be a discussion for probably later this week. That being said, our story starts not with Plagueis, but with the Star Wars Republic comic line, specifically issue 64. So, during the Clone Wars, the Republic is reeling from the fact that Count Dooku told Obi-Wan that there's a Sith Lord positioned within the Senate. This has caused, of course, massive distrust, political instability. However, two Jedi, Ron Harkim and his Padawan Tapnar Paul, have come up with a plan to try to flesh out the Sith Lord, with the plan mostly being devised by the apprentice. Their plan is pretty simple. The Jedi have certain techniques which can be used to measure midichlorians. They want every single senator to take the test, and the Sith Lord should be shown because of his high midichlorian count. Ronhar has been personal friends with Palpatine for some time, so he brings the idea to the Chancellor, who dismisses it outright for several reasons, primarily because many senators will just not comply with this order, and it could break the Senate apart. Palpatine, of course, has his personal reasons for not wanting to do so, being that he is, well, the Sith Lord. However, Tapnar Paul has an admittedly genius response to this problem. He says, if you were to be the first one to be tested, if you volunteered, that would carry great weight. Given your own popularity, if this were seen as coming from you, it would not be politically feasible for anyone to refuse. This is a rare moment where Palpatine is, well, stuck. There's no legitimate reason for him not to submit to this test. But if he does submit, his identity will be exposed. One common way that people get around having their midichlorian count discovered is by clouding the mind of the person running the test, but presumably it would be the Jedi in this case. Obviously that won't be possible. So Sidious stalls, and Ronhar and his apprentice are sent off on another mission for a couple of days, and upon their return, they promise to put the plan in motion. This is where things get brutal. Palpatine needs to eliminate these two Jedi who have promised to keep the plan to themselves. He diverts a large portion of the CIS droid army and navy under the command of Dooku to the planet Murson, where they had been fighting pirates. The two Jedi are not only killed, but killed relatively brutally, with the Master being shot at point-blank range by a super battle droid. Palpatine is literally changing the course of the war because, and I quote, "I have learned that a curious Jedi seeks to sniff me out. He lays a trap for me. Well, we shall lay a trap for him." And every single Republic soldier, Jedi or clone, is destroyed, with only some of the escort fleet, including Captain Pelion, being able to safely retreat. However, this is only the top layer of a much more complex story, one which reflects the depth of Palpatine's evil. Ron Harkim and Palpatine had actually been close friends for the better part of 30 years. As we learn in this comic, but further in Darth Plagueis, Palpatine had sought out the vulnerable Jedi after the death of his father, Vidar Kim, and we'll come back to that. He claimed to have wanted a guide in Coruscant because he was a new senator at this point, and in return taught Vidar about his father and the general basics of politics. We see shortly after Palpatine had been named Supreme Chancellor that the two men were quite close. And in fact, on one occasion, Ronhar actually saved Palpatine's life from a group of Senate guards which had been infiltrated by assassins. And I say save his life, knowing that Palpatine could have, if necessary, defended himself, but not without maintaining his disguise. So Palpatine willingly throws away someone that he had claimed to be friends with for almost 3 decades because he may have impacted his hidden identity. And he did so without remorse. But this is still not the bottom level level of Palpatine's depravity. Ronhar's father, Vidar Kim, who we mentioned earlier, was actually the senator of Naboo before Palpatine, and more than that, was probably the closest thing Palpatine had to a father figure, despite the two beings being relatively close in age. He was at least like an older brother, guiding Palpatine, supporting him, protecting him when his own father often didn't do so, and this was before Palpatine met Plagueis or started down his dark path of becoming a Sith Lord. Kim actually helped Palpatine get a foothold into politics, but unfortunately suffered personal tragedy when his entire family, save for Ronhar, who was with the Jedi of course, died in a speeder crash. This included his younger sons and his wife. Ronhar was incredibly upset, not only of course because he lost his family, but because his lineage was also essentially ended. However, things only got worse from there. By this point, Palpatine had transformed into Darth Sidious and was working in concert with Plagueis. Vidar Kim was actually blocking some of their goals and also was in the way of Palpatine becoming Naboo's senator. So, Palpatine had the man killed, by the orders of course of his master. And this arguably was one of the only difficult murders in Palpatine's entire life, even though he didn't do so personally. Plagueis sensed some apprehension and perhaps even unwillingness to carry out his order, and this is one of the only occasions where it could be said that Palpatine's emotions may have got the best of him, or at least emotions around love and compassion. Still, drawing on his anger and the dark side, Palpatine managed to get over that, hiring the Maladian assassins which successfully killed Kim. So Palpatine not only killed, without thought, a supposed friend of 30 years, but a friend who was in fact the son of someone that Palpatine was very close with. And not only that, after the death of Vidar's sons and wives, he contacted Ronhar, asking him to leave the Jedi Order and of course eventually to bear offspring, to continue the family name. Palpatine also removed any chance of that happening, almost like he was further spitting on the grave of his dead mentor. But that's all for that story. And I think this little comic and how it works with the Plagueis novel really well exemplifies what I was discussing earlier, and that is how James Luceno brilliantly weaves together stories to create a sort of EU tapestry. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think of Republic 64, Darth Plagueis, and anything else down in the comments. Just another reminder that Corey and I will be live streaming our discussion of the book tonight. I'm sure it'll go 2 or 3 hours, and the VOD or podcast version will be available soon afterwards, probably tomorrow. Anyway guys, that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, may the Force be with you.